Food is more than just what's on our plate. It's the places where it's grown, it's the people who grow it, and so much more. Join me, Janice Person, your host, on Grounded by the Farm every other week as we talk about the foods we love. For this episode, we go to Rocky Mount, North Carolina, where we're going to talk to Will Kornegay. Will comes from a family of entrepreneurs in a rural area, though. So he was surrounded by agriculture and got sucked in much like I did and found it such an interesting place. But he has brought that entrepreneurial spirit to it. So once he saw an opening, he started creating something very different with Ripe Revival. We're going to talk a lot about it. We want to get through some of the background first because I think it shows you the vision, how it was slowly created into doing something that really helps build the community in that rural area, taking the excess that farmers are growing that could potentially become food waste and providing it as access to people who either want to buy it as a subscription box or perhaps people who live in a food desert, maybe on limited incomes, and may not have access to it in their areas. So we're going to talk about all things Ripe Revival. Let's go ahead and get started.
I started my first business when I was a kid. We had a Kool-Aid stand in the neighborhood and I franchised it out to everybody in the neighborhood. So something about being an entrepreneur has always been in my blood. My dad was an entrepreneur. And so I saw that, until I lost him at a young age. And it just drove me to really have that desire. But, I was very blessed after college to have been able to walk into a family farm operation at the right time and be mentored by one of the smartest agribusinessmen and farmers probably in the country, Bobby Ham out of Snow Hill, North Carolina. And he is one of the largest sweet potato farmers in the world right now. And I came in and was able to walk alongside him as he built his farm and built his produce business and played a big role in how they grew the fresh produce sales organization, but also implemented food processing facilities that created this unique economies of scale where he used 100% of his sweet potatoes. And as you're well aware, farm excess or food waste on the farm is a huge problem. On average, 40% of farmers' crops are lost or left in the field every year. And seeing him solve that problem for himself really gave me this desire to provide a solution to other farmers, which is kind of what started pulling at my heartstrings to start Ripe Revival.
That's amazing. So the food, the farm excess that you're talking about is not just a farm problem. It's a food waste problem for me, right? Like when I think about it, I found produce that wasn't getting used. Sometimes people talk about ugly, ugly fruits and vegetables. That's one piece of it. But sometimes it might be a sweet potato that got kind of cut through or something like that may not be perfect to sell in a grocery store, but you could do something else really cool with it, right?
Things that make them not attractive, but perfectly edible.
Right. And I remember you were doing something with sweet potatoes early on. And I think because that area you're in is such a heavy sweet potato, do they kind of come into each of the businesses you've been? You got your start there with the farmer. Has that just kind of continued to be a thread?
For sure. Yeah. Sweet potatoes are kind of the heart and soul of North Carolina. We're the highest producing sweet potato producing state in the country. And the county that I live in is number 2 in the state. And so it's always been a part of what we do. It's where my experience and love for agriculture in the professional sense began. And there's just a lot of availability. So there's definitely a lot of creative ways to use them. And so we've kept them at the center of a lot of our businesses. And now we're working to diversify and create opportunities outside of sweet potatoes in a lot of different ways.
And part of why I think sweet potatoes work, we've actually talked to a sweet potato farmer before in Louisiana, and you two would probably talk trash to each other about which state's better at it. But the nutritional profile of sweet potatoes is amazing. And that comes
Absolutely.
in on a lot of your things, right?
Yeah, they carry a lot of different health and nutritional benefits, and they're heart healthy, and they've got a lot of different unique benefits that regular potatoes don't offer, and they taste great as well. And so we're proud. There's a lot of nutrition in the skin as well, which a lot of people don't know. Eat your sweet potato skins, but yeah, it's a great vegetable that can change people's lives for sure.
All right. So you have figured out a variety of ways to use them. Where do you want to start in terms of talking about these businesses that you've put together? I'll let you decide how we get it started because I follow you online and I have questions in a lot of different areas. So if somebody was going to ask you just how are you doing business in this space? How do you explain it?
Oh gosh, that's the number one question, and I've had to hire somebody to help me tell that story, and they're working on it right now because it's just so complex and there's so many moving parts to what we've done. But I think it starts with Ripe Revival, right where Ripe Revival was founded. We started, with the intention to go out and work with farmers to take their excess blueberries and grapes and sweet potatoes and make a patented protein gummy out of those. And we had this technology to extract the nutrients out of it and condense it to a protein and put them in a gummy. And we won a grant from the Kroger Foundation as one of 7 companies in the country to fund a project. And so we actually were able to go out and buy equipment needed and get some funding towards facility upfit to create a gummy production factory that made these gummies. And I bought a building, spent 6 months upfitting the building, and literally the week we were supposed to start producing gummies, COVID-19 shut down North Carolina, and all of our customers that we had lined up said, we're not going to buy these right now. We can't. And so my life savings and a lot of my pride were really swept under the rug right there, so to speak, because we just had all this money tied up and nothing that we could do to salvage it.
Yeah, I think that world of an entrepreneur, people don't realize how easy it is to have one big shift, not foreseen, and it can take you under. But you guys, instead of like having it put you under, you guys have pivoted like crazy, right?
We've had to, out of a need for survival in that moment, we had to go back to something. And that something for me was fresh produce. I've worked in fresh produce for over a decade before this came. And I had also founded a subscription box years ago and was able to build that business and exit that. So I knew the model. So we went back, and as I'm looking around and noticed that my business is crippled, I see all these farmers and all these food businesses that are crippled because they've lost all their restaurant business when these companies had to shut down. And so I jumped to action. I built a website in 2 days called Ripe Revival Market. And then I started aggregating, reaching out to all these farmers and food producers, meat producers, and aggregating their inventory, and started selling memberships online. And within weeks, we had hundreds and hundreds of members that we were delivering to all across North Carolina. And we were really starting to gain some traction, solving a problem not only for these farmers and producers, but also for the consumers who were scared of the uncertainty. They weren't leaving home, they weren't shopping at stores, and if they were, they couldn't find anything. So we solved a need on both ends of the spectrum there, and it's been a big core and heart of what we've done over the last few years.
Yeah, we've talked to a few farmers about that. Actually, we talked to a tomato farmer that did a lot of that here in St. Louis, where I am, but we also talked to an avocado farmer who was already doing home delivery of avocados. And so you guys really, because you're there on the eastern side of North Carolina, there's a lot of produce that's grown in your market. I mean, we talked about sweet potatoes, but I've been to pepper farms, melon farms. Everything is over there, it seems like.
Yeah, there's a great, diversity of crops that are grown here from, like you said, peppers and watermelons and cantaloupes to cabbage, broccoli, a lot of different types of potatoes, squashes. So we certainly dabble on a couple of those on our farm, and farm partnerships. But there's a lot of good farmers here, and we really love highlighting each of them and taking their products to market, because there's some really good produce grown in Eastern North Carolina.
And you guys, somewhere along the line, didn't you add meat proteins?
We did. Yeah, we started that with Ripe Revival Market. There are a lot of our meat producers, the manufacturing plants and the smaller brands or smaller farms, lost a lot of their food service business. And so we helped them pivot into retail packaging and started putting those in our boxes as well. And so that's been a big part of offering and a service that a lot of these other companies that do what we do have not been able to do, for sure.
So what all areas of North Carolina are you able to service today? And I know you always have growth plans involved.
Yeah, so we're kind of in the middle of another pivot/growth phase right now with the Ripe Revival Market. I mean, we've learned a lot over the last, goodness, I can't keep up with time anymore, but 2.5, 3 years. And I think that what we've learned, well, we first of all, to answer your question, we service from Chapel Hill to Wilmington to the coast. So basically from the Triangle area all the way to the coast. We've started trialing some carrier shipments to Western North Carolina, and then we have been starting to ship some shipments outside of the state. And our goal is to really start expanding our reach, but we're also changing our platform to a virtual farmers market, where what we've learned is that consumers love fresh produce and they love these items, but they want to choose what they're going to get. And so instead of us consolidating and kind of, for lack of a better word, dictating what they get each week, we're going to be offering a model where they can go in and shop a la carte for these products, either by commodity or even by farmer, if they want to support a certain farm. And so we're really excited about that. Hope to launch that later this summer.
That's awesome. The way you have gone about it, you have direct relationship with farmers, you have direct relationships with consumers, and then you're also doing a lot in the community. Is that right?
Yeah, I think community is the big word here. I think we look at more in agriculture. You've worked in this industry long enough to know that there's no other industry that defines community better than the agriculture community. The beauty of that is that we get to take these products from this awesome community and share it with other communities. And our effort, our mission, in fact, our purpose as a family of companies is to revive communities through food. And that's a double-edged sword there. We're trying to revive communities on the farm side who need to find outlets for excess, who need better margins, better yields to survive and to continue operating. And then we're reviving communities who need this awesome, healthy, nourishing food. And we're connecting the dots, and we say we're bridging that gap between farm excess and food access to create solutions to all the problems along the way from the supply chain.
That farm access, as you talk about it, I can remember being at I think it was a bell pepper farm, which is funny because if you're looking at him on his Zoom, he has a background of bell peppers in the background. But I remember they had people coming in and they pick a certain amount in a certain period of time, right? And if you're going to certain grocery stores, they want perfect bell peppers that look absolutely stunning, which is probably what I want if I'm taking photographs of it, all that kind of stuff. But there was quite a bit that they were leaving behind. And the farmers have already paid for the seed and the fertilizer, and they've already put in all this work to get the bell peppers grown, but maybe it didn't have that fourth beautiful lobe, or maybe a bug had kind of bit the bloom early on, so it was a little bit misshapen. But with the farmers you're talking about, it's worth their time and effort now to then save that produce and get it into the market with you guys.
Yeah, I think that's really the driver for us, is how do we create that value, that experience, whether it be on the farm or for the consumer. And for the farmer, what that means is we want to provide opportunities for 100% utilization. Not only do they get to sell us crops that they would typically lose or leave in the field that are not worth them picking, but they can invest in that crop knowing that when they have it, and they will, that we're going to be providing a solution for that we're going to increase their yield. We're going to take that 40% that they typically don't have a home for on average, and we're going to pay them a fair and oftentimes above market price for that product. And their profitability and overall efficiency is going to be greater than it was before they worked with us. And there's nothing wrong with that produce. And, the fact that a lot of retailers won't put a suntan pepper, which has red and green splotches in it on their shelf, is really driven by consumer demand. You can't blame a retailer for not buying a product that they know will not sell on their shelf. It will rot. And so our focus at Ripe Revival is to Trojan horse our way into changing the narrative. We are going to make ugly fruits and vegetables sexy again. We're going to make consumers want them, so that they understand that just because it doesn't have the right appearance doesn't mean that it's not perfectly healthy and nutritious. So we're changing that narrative and helping farmers in the process.
Well, and you think about it, in the past, maybe people would look more at the look of the food and things. But in today's world, at least in my family, we talk a lot about the environmental components of different things, and knowing that your food is grown responsibly and that you're helping pull some of the things off of the farm that may otherwise not get used as well. Man, that makes me feel great.
Well, I love hearing that because, I think education, there's a lack of education in how food is grown and where it comes from. And obviously, there's a huge disconnect between any kind of distance from a farm to the table, from rural to, urban areas. And so our goal is to create a platform where we can tell stories not only of where the food comes from, but stories of impact in sharing tangible data that can show the impact and make things obvious that may not traditionally be obvious, so that people change their purchasing behavior. And in the long run, it's going to change not just what gets back to the farm, but it's going to change health outcomes. It's going to change communities altogether. And so that's our goal.
I have to ask you a question just because my niece and her husband that live up in Asheville definitely were in the same spot as many people, where suddenly they turned around and they were lucky they knew butchers and could buy meat direct from them. And they loved getting some of those unique cuts. So we mentioned that you do have meat in the availability in some of the boxes. Do you put some of those more unique cuts in there too? So, we all love pork chops and bacon, or steak and hamburger, but maybe not everybody knows what to do with some of the other cuts that are a little bit more unique. Do you guys have the ability to pull those in as well?
Yeah, I think, and I hope I answer this appropriately. Everybody has a different definition of unique. And when I look at unique produce, being ugly produce versus unique meat, I think that a lot of the problems remain the same, right? So like as a farmer takes, or a cattle farmer takes a cow to be processed, whether it be an independent processor or a larger, there's a lot of parts of that animal that are left over after they take out the ribeyes and take out the sirloins and take out the traditionally marketed products. What do you do with that? Well, we work with some of these farmers to create, for example, like a flank stew meat pack that we put with potatoes and carrots and onions in a box to create a theme that encourages them to use that. From a standpoint of, if unique means, do you get to put tomahawk steaks in your box? Well, higher price point items right now are currently not in our boxes, but with our virtual market, we are looking to offer some of these unique higher end. But our goal still remains the same: 100% utilization. How do we find ways to drive efficiency in the production, processing, and consumption of agricultural commodities?
So you're really going through and kind of making it more productive, better stewarding the things all the way through the process, farm to the house, all of that stuff. You make it easier.
That's our goal. That's the heart. Yeah, that's the heart. And I think I personally believe, my faith drives me to make a lot of decisions that I make. And I think that I believe that we're put on this earth to do good, to do good to others and to love and serve people. And I think that, loving and serving people professionally means, how do we make them more efficient, more profitable, and more successful? I think that doing so personally means, how do we make their lives better? How do we enrich every, interaction? And I think that the best way to someone's heart is through their stomach. So we love to surround a table with good, healthy food and have conversations. And that's how we live and operate our lives and our business.
So part of that I see from you is really on LinkedIn. I kind of giggled earlier thinking about how much I follow your business on LinkedIn. You've been hiring different people to come in with different backgrounds and stuff than the typical farming business, where you show more of that food footprint. Help me explain some of those kind of new steps.
Again, a lot of our stuff to date has been in just really direct interaction with farmers and buying of fresh produce and agricultural commodities. But what I haven't talked about a lot is our desire to take a more hands-on approach to food processing ourselves. We still manufacture gummies in this plant that we put together before COVID. We found a way to pivot and start taking in customers where we co-manufacture gummies for others, but we're really starting to zero in on how can we take in produce, and instead of just providing outlets for it through our box programs, how do we create more value that's going to even bring even more return back to the farmer? And so we're looking at increasing our processing infrastructure to make things like purees or juices fresh cut fruits and vegetables and kits that we make with those. We've even got a meal kit called Sasquatch, where we take these ugly spaghetti squash because they're scarred up and tie this theme together. We put it in a box with a jar of tomato marinara and a bag of our, gummies, and it's the meal kit, and it's branded around this Sasquatch theme where it's, dinner's no longer a mystery or elusive, and we've gotten a lot of interest in just making food fun. And that's our goal, is to do that in every interaction.
And you guys have recently added to your food safety and your nutrition kind of staff. So you're really rounding out that team.
One thing I have learned is that if it's just me and if it's just people like me, we are not going to succeed. I believe in surrounding myself with smart people and a diverse background. And when you do that, it brings a lot of perspectives and it brings a lot of sometimes arguments to the table. But when you hash those out, usually the person that knows what they're talking about ends up prevailing. And so what I've learned is that as we go down these roads of food processing and education and nonprofit, which we haven't touched on yet, but I've had to bring in people who have professional experience in those areas. I know how farming works. I know how fresh produce works. I know how logistics and business in general work, but I need people who can make sure that as we expand, we do so safely, that can help us as we incorporate programs to educate people, that we're doing so strategically and intentionally. And there's a lot that goes into that. So yeah, we've been very fortunate to draw in a lot of really qualified people who are not only sold out for our business, but are sold out for the mission.
And probably loving being in Eastern North Carolina, right?
Not too bad. We got the best of all the worlds, the ocean, the mountains, and the lakes right here within a couple hours. So
let's talk about that nonprofit and kind of community sharing. Is some of that through the farming side of your business, or is that it kind of ties through everything, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think that the nonprofit really rounds off our ecosystem that we're building. What we've really tried to do is create that economies of scale that I referenced earlier. And we've done a lot of that through our business. But I think what, a lot of businesses are missing, even some social driven businesses, is the ability to not only put their money where their mouth is, so to speak, for their mission and their direct involvement in that and living that, but to allow others to kind of come into that with them, alongside them, and to create funding or opportunities that would not be available for a for-profit. And so we've created this unique structure where it allows us to allocate a percentage of all revenue from our for-profit businesses to our mission through our nonprofit, where we've developed 3 programs. And we've been very, humbled by the fact that a lot of our customers, both direct to consumer and business to business customers, are supporting that nonprofit and its programs to basically bridge that gap between excess and access. And the 3 programs we have are very intentional, strategically launched to complement our businesses and complement what our region needs after a lot of philanthropic work and government funded contracts that we've taken on during the pandemic.
Can you give me those 3 areas that you're operating in then?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've got 3 programs. One is called Farming Growth. And what we've done is we've gone out and purchased community assets, tractors, farming implements, trucks and trailers and, equipment to farm produce. And we're working with a local college, Nash Community College, local high schools, Southern Nash High School here in Rocky Mount, and other organizations, nonprofits, to put in community farms where we do the crop planting. We share the assets to plant the crops. We work with seed companies and local businesses to help provide some of these. And we're showing them how to grow produce. And we're developing curriculum and certifications along the way. And we're allowing that produce to be utilized across other programs and to nourish their communities.
Oh, I love it.
So we're super excited about that one.
I love that one. So what are the others?
So the second is called the Mobile Market Program. Eastern North Carolina is very rural. A lot of people know about the big cities, but they don't know about the rural areas that are considered food deserts. There's not a lot of grocery stores. There's not a lot of access to fresh fruits and vegetables for the majority of the population. And so we've gone out and purchased 2 large city transit buses that we are converting into retail markets with produce shelving and freezers and fridges and fun stuff on it, where we're going to take local to the communities and give them access to it. And not only are we going to be It's a pay what you can market. So people can still purchase at whatever level they're able to. It offers SNAP and EDT payments as an option, but it allows consumers to buy with dignity. Or if they need it, they can go on and take it for their families and no one's going to say anything. And so we think that's important. And in that, we've also got a registered dietitian that's going to have a cooking cart that's going to roll off that bus. And she's going to do cooking demonstrations and show these communities how to cook foods, because they probably haven't seen a lot of these unique fruits and vegetables that are going to be there. And we want them to know how to cook with them well and how it's going to impact their health.
Having lived in the remote, rural, southern parts of the world, I will say a lot of it is not having had exposure to different things. And when you're at that poverty line or, lower, it's hard to put your money based on potential that it might taste good. So I love the idea that you'll have somebody there kind of walking through sort of how to prepare it, what to do with it, all that kind of stuff, because spaghetti squash may not be something everybody has tried, but it may be the thing that gets your kids to eat more vegetables.
That's right. And if you can do it in a fun way and get them excited about it, they'll do it time and time again. You just got to show them not to eat the skin on those, but to eat the skin on the sweet potatoes. And why. I think that's really important for us, is we want to leave a lasting impression, not just on the meals for that day or that week, but on their hearts and minds, that can change and empower communities to do just that. And the last thing on that bus is a mobile podcast studio that allows us to go around and interview these farmers and our partners and community members to talk about stories of impact and really kind of push this narrative about excess and access.
I love it. And I think I still need the third component of that community giving.
Yep. So the last one is called our Ripe Revival Provisions Programs. And it's a little bit broader in scope. It really kind of just gobbles up everything else that comes our way. But the word provision is strategically chosen because we think that it encompasses what we're trying to do by providing opportunities for farmers to continue providing outlets for their excess through either the market or through our relationships with other nonprofits, where we're buying this excess and we're providing it to different partners, but also the desire to create education programs that create lasting, sustainable change in the community. So we go into organizations like the YMCA or the Boys and Girls Club or other local nonprofits that focus on children through high school to really engage with these kids, give them the ability to learn about these fruits and vegetables that we're growing in our area, but more importantly, teach them about opportunities within the agriculture industry and food production industries, and let them know that you don't have to just be a farmer. You can work at a food production plant. You can create your own food products, and we're there to help you figure out what you want to do and help you hopefully pursue that and possibly be part of our ecosystem as we develop these new processing technologies. We can help create products, create brands, and provide immediate outlets for them. And that's our desire.
That's awesome. Kids love gummies. That's going to be an automatic. Spaghetti squash. You've got so many different pieces coming in here that just seem like your community must be lighting up.
We like to say we want to drive unity through community. And I think that I have a lot of taglines. That's one of them. But that came in the heart of the pandemic when we were doing this Farmers to Families food box program, and we were packing, 5,000 boxes of produce a week and distributing them to families in our area. And we did that by partnering with 50 plus nonprofits and 300 plus volunteers a week. And what I saw in those weeks, we did that for 10 weeks, was just this incredible sense of community. And so we've kind of repositioned our entire company around that mentality, where if you invest in your community, they will invest in you. And that's the goal, is to create enough awareness about the issues to provide enough solutions without running ourselves and our businesses into the ground, and create enough, community to really create this movement, this ecosystem that people are going to get behind, and that's going to create that change that's needed.
If people are not familiar with Ripe Revival, besides listening to this podcast, and they think, oh, wait a minute, I'm in that side of North Carolina. I'm there by Chapel Hill or Wilmington or Raleigh, Durham. Where should they go to like help be a supporter and get on that list so they can start getting some boxes from you?
That's a great question. I appreciate you asking that. So right now we're in the midst of this consolidation. And I think I mentioned earlier, we hired someone to help us tell this story a little bit more professionally than I have time to even try and put together. But we have two websites right now, riperevival.com and riperevivalmarket.com. Both links will work, but we are consolidating one website, which I am currently building myself in some off time and have a couple others helping. But it should be live in the next 2 weeks with a consolidated overview of everything we've talked about. It's a little bit more detailed.
Perfect.
It'll have all of our products and everything on it. And then our social media pages are going to go to @riperevival. We're consolidating all of those as well.
I love it. Did I miss asking you about something, Will?
No, you've been so thorough. I think you've been great. I think, we just really appreciate the opportunity to tell our story and appreciate passionate people like you who love agriculture, love farmers, and love community.
I love the idea of getting to know some of the people that handle my food, that help get the food from the field to my plate. And you're one of the perfect examples. So thanks a lot for being here, Will. I appreciate it.
Well, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing how this goes and how people receive it. And I wish you the best with everything and look forward to staying in touch.
All right. So everybody, don't forget, if you know somebody in that North Carolina area that we're talking about that you think, oh my God, this is right up their alley, shoot them this link and tell them to get on the market. Check out Ripe Revival. They're going to love it. I'll make sure you have all the links and stuff in the show notes. There's also some videos and stuff that I'm going to be able to use from Will's YouTube channel. So you just get a look at the place. He's got some great footage from drones and stuff of them planting peppers and all into plastic mulching. And I know you guys are going to enjoy seeing that. So thanks again, Will. We'll talk to you later.
Sounds great. Thank you.